You know, in the history of naval warfare, some ships are just different. They become more than just steel and guns. They become legends. And for their enemies, they become myths. We're going to talk about one of those ships today, the USS Helena, a cruiser that absolutely refused to die and earned a name that struck fear across the Pacific.
Just listen to that for a second. Imagine you're out there in the dead of night near Guadalcanal. It's pitch black. And then, from nowhere, this sound erupts. It's not the slow boom of naval cannons you're used to. No, it's a constant, terrifying roar, like a giant machine gun. That's what Japanese sailors said about the USS Helena. She wasn't just a ship, she was a nightmare.
All right, so a machine gun of steel, forged in an era of uncertainty. So where did this monster come from? Well, her story, it doesn't start in the heat of battle. It actually starts in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, smack in the middle of the Great Depression. America's trying to pull itself out of this huge economic hole, but at the same time, it's dreaming up a totally new kind of navy. And the Helena, she was going to be a big part of that dream.
So, she was a St. Louis-class cruiser. And what does that mean? Well, think of a light cruiser as kind of like the middleweight boxer of the Navy. It's not a heavyweight battleship with all that thick armor, but it's way faster, way more nimble. And these ships were built with a totally new philosophy in mind. Basically, stuff as much devastating firepower as you can onto a super fast hull. The whole idea was to dance in, land a brutal knockout blow, and then get the heck out of there, before the other guy even knew what was happening.
So what kind of firepower are we talking about here? Well, let's start with the big guns. 15 6-inch guns packed into 5 triple turrets. I mean, for a light cruiser, that is an insane amount of firepower. Just staggering. And this is how she got that nickname. Each one of those 15 guns could spit out 10 rounds a minute. Do the math. With a full broadside, the Helena could hurl more than 150 shells downrange every single minute. It's a literal hailstorm of high-explosive steel. Yeah, machine gun cruiser starts to make a whole lot of sense, right?
Okay, but all that firepower doesn't mean much if you're a sitting duck, and she wasn't. She was powered by 100,000 horsepower. That much juice let her cut through the water at 32.5 knots. This thing was a sprinter. It could chase down enemies or run from bigger threats and get those 15 guns exactly where they needed to be, fast.
But you know, you can talk about guns and horsepower all day long. In the end, a ship is just a big piece of metal. The real secret weapon? Her crew. 868 sailors who took all that steel and gun power and breathed life into it. These were the guys who made her something more, who turned a machine into a legend.
So, trial by fire, December 7th, 1941. Every legend has that one moment, right? That crucible. For the Helena, it was Pearl Harbor. This ship, built for the perfect battle, suddenly found itself in the middle of an ambush, fighting just to stay alive.
And here's where things get crazy. It's just a complete twist of fate. See, the Helena was tied up in a spot that was normally reserved for the battleship USS Pennsylvania. So when the Japanese pilots came in, they looked down, saw a big ship in the Pennsylvania spot, and just assumed that's what it was. They thought they were hitting a battleship.
Okay, now look at how fast this all happened. The first 5 minutes. At 7:57, a torpedo rips into her side, right into the engine rooms. That should be a death blow. But 2 minutes later, 2 minutes, the crew gets the forward diesel generators online to power the guns. And by 8:01, her AA guns are blazing away at the attackers. That's unbelievable. In the middle of total chaos, they fought back in under 5 minutes. And that quote says it all, doesn't it? The ship that should have died survived. Don't get me wrong, she was savaged. 34 of her crew were killed. Most ships would have been on the bottom of the harbor, but not the Helena. Her crew just refused to let her go. This was her brutal beginning, but her real story was just getting started.
So, next up, reborn as a hunter. From victim to vindicator. After getting patched up just enough to float, the Helena sailed to California for proper repairs. But this wasn't just about fixing holes. This was a total reinvention. The wounded ship that barely escaped Pearl Harbor was about to be reborn as something else entirely, a predator.
And you can see that transformation right here. They didn't just patch her up, they gave her a technological heart transplant. Look at this. Before, no real radar. After, she gets the brand new SG surface search radar and FC fire control radar. Now this is the key. This was revolutionary stuff. It meant the Helena could see in total darkness. She could find the enemy from miles away, aim her guns, and open fire before they ever knew she was there. It completely changed the rules of the game.
Of course, all that fancy tech is useless without the right people. And her crew, they trained like their lives depended on it. Because they did. They drilled over and over and over until every single action was second nature, just pure muscle memory. They basically became one with the ship. They were no longer just a crew on a ship, they were the weapon.
Vengeance in the dark, the Solomon Islands. By mid-1942, Helena was back, and she was headed for one of the most vicious battlegrounds of the entire war, the Solomon Islands. This was a place of brutal, close-quarters naval brawls, almost always fought in pitch-black darkness. Basically, it was the perfect hunting ground for the one ship that could see in the dark.
And her first real test? The Battle of Cape Esperance. Check this out. It's October 11, 1942. Helena's brand new radar gets a ping, enemy ships nearly 28,000 yards out. The Japanese fleet is sailing completely blind, no clue they're being watched. Then the order comes to fire. The very first shots from Helena's guns smash into the Japanese admiral's flagship. The whole battle was a stunning victory, and it was over in 14 minutes. 14! That radar wasn't just an advantage, it was an I win button. And that became her specialty. The fighting around Guadalcanal was like a knife fight in a locked closet, chaotic, brutal, and at point-blank range. And in that environment, Helena was queen. She just systematically took apart the Tokyo Express. Now, this was the nightly supply run of Japanese destroyers, and it was absolutely vital for their soldiers on the island. By smashing it again and again, Helena became maybe the most important ship in the entire campaign.
All right, a legend's final stand, the Battle of Kula Gulf. You know how these stories go. No matter how tough, how resilient, luck eventually runs out. And on July 6, 1943, in a place called Kula Gulf, the Helena's luck ran out. She was sailing into her last fight.
This time, the Japanese were ready for them. A volley of their infamous long-lance torpedoes sliced through the water, and they found their target. Not one, not two, but 3 hits. The impact was just unbelievable. Her bow was completely ripped off. The hull buckled and broke in 2. After everything she'd survived, the Helena was going down.
But this is the moment that makes her a true legend. Even as the ship is breaking apart, sinking into the black water, her guns are still firing. The turrets that still had power just kept shooting. Can you imagine that? It's the ultimate act of defiance. The ship was dying, but she was going to die fighting.
The ship was gone, but the story wasn't over. 168 men went down with her. A terrible, terrible loss. But what's incredible is that nearly 700 of her crew survived, and it's an amazing story in itself, rescued by fellow destroyers and even local islanders who risked everything to help. The ship was lost, but the crew, her soul, lived on.
And for decades, nobody knew exactly where she was. She was just gone. Then, in 2018, her wreck was finally found, resting nearly 3,000 feet down. A silent tomb, a monument to the incredible courage of her and her crew.
So it all comes back to this question, right? What really turns a hunk of steel into a legend that we're still talking about today? The Helena was an amazing piece of technology for sure, but was it the radar and the guns that made her legendary? Or was it the crew? The men who refused to let her sink at Pearl Harbor and who kept her guns firing even as she went down? I think maybe that's the answer. A machine, no matter how powerful, only becomes a legend when people pour their own spirit into it.